What is slowly dying off or disappearing? Story 1. Iodine in salt. Seriously, go to the grocery store and see how many brands of salt show this salt does not provide iodine, a necessary nutrient. Story 2. Family reunions. I was born in '83, and I can remember going to one every year for both sides of my pop's family and just one side of my mom's. It's definitely a dying tradition since now you can keep up with everyone online. Answer. This happened to me and my family, born in '82 here. It's like once my grandparents died, one in 2006 and one in 2010, everyone just split apart and now no one sees each other anymore. It's sad and it fudge sucks. I get that we're all busy, but now no one will make time to come to anything. My grandparents were the glue that held everything together, and that's been hard to accept. Keeping up online is great, but I also don't think you can really replace face-to-face time in some ways. Edit. I think some of you had this right. Make your own history and make time for people in reality. Make time for the experiences with your family because it's gone in an instant before you know it. Story 3. Fireflies. They mostly rely on the bioluminescence of their fellow species in order to attract for mating. However, due to increasing urbanization, which is also increasing use of artificial lighting, street lamps, their presence are dwindling. Answer. I live in St. Louis, Missouri, and thankfully, due to a combination of more people going with native landscaping and an even larger number just not giving two shoot about their yards, combined with some fantastic public parks that also don't get crazy pesticide lawn treatments, we have the healthiest pollinator population in the state. This means we also have tons of beautiful lightning bugs. So, I'm not sure light pollution is a big driver of the problem. I would be inclined to blame people turning their lawns into green wastelands. Grass isn't green. Bring nature back to your yard and enjoy the sights and sounds. Edit. Wow, this really blew up. Thanks, everyone. I should add that this is heavily dependent on where in STL you are. Ironically, the more desirable places are going to have significantly fewer because of the way people treat their lawns. I am referring specifically to St. Louis City's residential areas and parks. If you live in the county, they'll be a lot more scarce. Again, eliminate everything at the expense of grass. Story 4. Small restaurants and cafes. One of my favorite cafes was a victim of the pandemic. It was literally a one-woman operation with cozy seating, which of course wasn't utilized during the pandemic, and had dozens of latte flavors that you could combine to make a bunch of different drinks. I still miss it. Story 5. Drive-in theaters. I loved these as a kid. There's still a few left and a couple popped up during COVID here and there, but you have to hunt them down more and be willing to drive out a ways sometimes. There's nothing like loading snacks, throwing some extra cushions and pillows in your vehicle, pulling up and taking in 2 to 3 movies on the big screen under the stars. Also, a good adventure for dates. Story 6. Malls e-commerce has been going crazy, and COVID, I feel, was the final nail in the coffin. I saw a shirt for $25 in the mall in a store and saw it for $13.99 on Amazon. It also took a day to have it shipped to me. Story 7. WW2 veterans. There's estimated to be around 300,000 in the US. Considering that when I was a kid, there were still a few WW1 veterans shuffling around and I've seen them go extinct, I'll likely live to see the WW2 guys die out also. Sobering thought, really. Answer. When my great-grandfather passed in 2014 at 94, we were holding his funeral on a Monday in January. My grandpa, great-grandpa's son-in-law, who fought in Vietnam, is in a military support biker club, Patriot Guard Riders. Tried to get a few people to give my great-grandpa one last salute, but due to the timing, we didn't expect many people to show up. Amazingly, dozens of veterans and servicemen showed up to give him a final salute because he was a WW2 veteran who fought in Germany. He had a whole 21-gun salute and everything. As sad as his passing was, seeing him be honored that way was beautiful, and I'll always be happy that his service and passing was not in vain. It's sad to know so few remain. I just hope they all get the same final salute as my great-grandfather. They deserve it. Story 8. Yes, indeed. I fancied myself quite the garden naturalist and explorer. Neighbors would see me and my butterfly squad prancing through the neighborhood. Bold little adventurers decked out in makeshift safari gear, crouching, rolling, and patrolling through the backyards, trying to scout out the very best butterfly garden hotspots. When we found a good garden, we would document it in our butterfly safari map. Then we'd revisit the butterfly oases as the season progressed to see how different flowers' blooms impacted the bug turnout. We would catch all variety of bugs, put them in our bug zoo, and charge parents to see our haul. Of course, I would always release them, even if some of our zookeeper fancied themselves as quite the taxidermists. We'd always be disappointed, 70 of the time IRL, but it felt like always. When we'd show up to our butterfly hotspots and see nothing but buzzing, droning, mindless bumblebees. They would come in such numbers. I thought they were pushing all the butterflies away. It was such a letdown when I wanted those beautiful butterflies. I am sad to say I would have welcomed their extinction at this point in my life. Not anymore. Today I understand their importance. Sadly, I cannot remember the last time I heard the buzz of a bumblebee float by, and I will be sure to take a mental snapshot next time I see one. For all I know, it could be the last bumbler I ever see. Story 9. Affordable housing for young adults. Edited. To add, people who ain't from where I live find the need to tell me I'm wrong if I don't look for a home in a larger city. I am from the Netherlands, and the last place I would look for to rent a home is from larger cities. I don't like the massive crowds. It makes me really uneasy, and I feel the urge to escape from the location. Story 10. Facebook-only pages posting memes and videos. Almost no real person still posts what they are up to. Story 11. Frogs, bees, insects, chain of life species that connect the web. When those pivotal groups go extinct, humanity is fudge. Edit. A great video by Steve Cutts is relevant here. Story 12. Sending mail or receiving it. Writing checks. Cashiers at grocery store as automated self-checkout in most stores now. Story 13. Stay at home. Mothers' wives and/or fathers' husbands, non-working parents, custodians, grandparents, guardians of young children. It's too expensive for quality care of young children in the U.S. If you are middle income, you often still need two partners to make ends meet. Single parents often have 2 or more jobs just to survive. Government assistance is available, but the bridges out of poverty are limited. Story 14. The amount of people actually getting married and having children is decreasing amongst millennials and the generations going forward. Answer. I'd love to do those things, but I can't even afford to live here, let alone a wedding and children. I'm paying $800 a month for a room in a basement. That's a good deal because it's with my sister. Other places like mine are going for $950. Houses? Places big enough to have children? Forget it. The government constantly points out birth rate stats and all that, but fails to make this place literally any way livable enough to even attempt to raise a child. What am I gonna do? 1-bedroom apartment for $1,300 a month? Me and my kid and my husband and my pets all in there? No room to grow? Or get rid of the animals I've housed for 7 years now? The housing crisis here boomed so fast and so hard that 7 years ago when I got them, I never thought it would even be a problem. Story 15. Cars with manual transmissions. Edit. I am referring to the car market in my native country, US. As many of you have pointed out, this isn't necessarily the case elsewhere, at least not yet. Story 16. I'd say smoking, but vaping is taking over. I'm not convinced they won't find that to be very harmful in the near future, too. People think it's consequence-free, so they do it more. Story 17. Religion. At least in the US, an increasing number of Americans every year declare themselves nones, atheist or agnostic, etc., according to various Pew Research Center polls. Answer. I volunteered at a church for a while, and it seemed as if churches are nowadays more a community hub than solely a place of worship. Obviously, they still do religious events, christenings, weddings, etc., but there's also charity events, cafes, nursery graduations, after-school half-term groups, uniform swaps, food banks, coffee mornings, etc. The church in my town is right in the middle of the town, and a lot of older people who live in the surrounding villages go there when the buses drop them off for the Wednesday-Saturday markets. Story 18. Fireflies. When I was a kid in the 80s, they were one of my favorite things about summer. Clouds of them would show up at night flickering on and off like tiny firecrackers. Since then, fewer and fewer have been appearing every passing summer. Now, I am lucky if I can catch one. And I live next to a nature reserve. Their numbers shouldn't be so small, but they are. And that worries me as well as make me sad. I miss those little bugs. Story 19. Retail chains. Soon it will only be Amazon, Walmart, and Target, and people will keep meaning about how rich Jeff Bezos is, while that order literally everything from Amazon 'cause stores suck. Story 20. Manners. So many people sneeze and cough without covering their mouths and will flip shoot if you remind them to. People who openly antagonize service workers. People acting ridiculous in public places. It's like self-awareness has become rare. Story 21. Dating in person or the traditions that come with relationships, like marriage or kids. I know a lot of people who don't want kids besides me. I like how it's more acceptable too, because I really can't see myself having children. Story 22. Ability to write in cursive. Having a unique and artful signature used to be as much of someone's character as their style of dress and mannerisms. Answer. I don't know if anyone's noticed, but I can immediately tell the age of someone based on their cursive. I can a bit for regular handwriting as well, but cursive is just telling. Older people have almost that calligraphy style of cursive that you would see hundreds of years ago, whereas younger people have a much loopier style of cursive. I work in a pharmacy, so I decipher handwriting all day, and sometimes I get some handwritten prescriptions or forms and I'm like, you're definitely over 50. I can write in cursive, but it doesn't look the same at all as the older style. Story 23. Culture and traditions. Belong to a tribe myself, I guess. Within 10 years, the cultural values and traditions will be nowhere to be found. Story 24. Cartoons like the ones in 90s, when the creators had fun creating rather than worry about the target demographic. Lot if them were aimed at children, but adults enjoyed them and still do. Days of experimenting like Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon used to do. Story 25. My faith in humanity and people who respect people's beliefs and don't go harassing people for believing or not believing in a religion. Respect in general is probably going to die. Story 26. the possibility of owning a home in the U.S. By some estimates, it will no longer be a possibility to purchase a home by 2050 because everything will be owned and rented out. Story 27. Ecosystems everywhere. I remember once my dad asked me the last time I had seen Canadian geese. He hadn't seen them around in a long time, and neither had I. All the birds, really, he expounded. They used to be everywhere, and I agreed. Our family used to drive up and down California nearly every weekend, and our windshields would be covered in insects. I can't remember the last time I had to clean my car of insects. Of course they're related, directly so. The insects die, and then the birds who feed on them die, and then. It's like a giant flywheel, zipping faster and faster at a dizzying, accelerating clip. It's so fast, you can see it in your own lifetime, as a layperson. My father had no science education, no climatology that he was drawing upon. It is obvious. Collapse is in the air for all who are willing to see it. Answer. While your experiences are certainly interesting, I'm afraid they're also an excellent illustration of why it's important not to rely on anecdotal evidence. The reality is that the global Canadian goose population has actually skyrocketed over the past few decades. Having recovered from the near-endangered lows of the 1950s and nearly doubled their numbers since 2000, which continues to trend upwards to this day. They've even reintroduced themselves to regions where they were considered locally extinct within the United States. Story 28. To put a more positive spin on things, I feel homophobia and transphobia has become far less prevalent than when I was a kid. Sometimes I still get some comments, however there's much less stigma around it than even 5 years ago, especially transphobia. That shoot seems to be dying out quick. Most of my trans friends can be open about it now with very few worries. Answer. I would say transphobia is still a lot more prevalent than homophobia. Although you're absolutely right that both are phasing out of society, most people that have those opinions are from older generations, so it should be phasing out at an exponential rate, which is great. Would love a world where everyone can be themselves and happy with the partner of their choosing without other people trying to interfere. Story 29. Liver and onions. I love it. But even in my very rural Midwestern area, most diners have relegated it to the senior menu, and I don't know anybody else my age who orders it. Story 30. The arts. No one cares about the arts till you have no posters, ads, billboards, music. All of the arts could use a boost and be more appreciated by the public. Artists could be paid more and actually make advancements in certain areas. Urban art projects help the community. Like, where did the love for being creative go? That's a rhetorical question. The U.S. educational system saw to that. Where did that spark that made us interested in things go? Anyone can be an artist with practice. You drew a stick figure? Well, you did it right. Might not be good, but you did. Keep going. Make happy. Accidents. Story 31. The belief that the American government will ever do anything to make the lives of the people financially better in any way. The military will get unlimited money, though, and billionaires will continue to pay nothing in taxes. Meanwhile, we die. Story 32. I've been amazed by how many great articles get. You have 0 remaining free articles for the month. Please subscribe to read this content. Story 33. Mental health, rationality, sanity. I wish I could say it was slowly dying off. I never imagined it could be happening this dramatically or quickly. Western society is very mentally unhealthy right now and is really going straight down the tubes. Story 34. My gains. Between COVID shutting gyms down, having a baby, working full-time and then some, my GF being in university, and having a special needs child, my motivation and momentum are just gone. Story 35. Repair folks. Good skilled folks repairing and mending just about anything. Clothes, shoes, electronics, appliances. We have become wasteful, and we refuse to repair and reuse. We throw away and replace with new too easily, and we don't repair due to lack of good repair, people sharing fair price. It's a vicious cycle, and complaining are taking advantage of this and bolding unrepairable things. Computers, phones, new TVs are the most notorious. Soon it's going to be cars. It's sad. We had an old family TV repairman Mom would call to repair the last old tube TV we had. He was skilled, would chew his tobacco and smell his soldering heater as he soared away, and fixed internal TV circuits until the picture was as good as it can be. We knew the TV was crap, but it had its antique charm almost. The repairman would tell us how the newer electronic-old plasma TVs were beyond him, how the companies have made even opening them up hard if not impossible. He would tell us BS like how the older tube TVs were way better. It was sad seeing through his talk, which was essentially trying to protect little bit of his remaining trade employment. Story 36. Smart consumers. Nowadays, everyone thinks they have some weird personal connections to faceless corporations. Story 37. Unregulated free information. More and more behind the scenes there is information control happening across almost all mainstream platforms a vast majority of our population tunes into, and it's getting worse. Story 38. The fad around illegal substances. People are realizing that A. They are becoming legal decriminalized. B. Just because you're breaking the law doesn't make it cool. C. Legal loophole substances are coming around, which is good and bad. Story 39. I would say critical thinking and common sense, but every time I hear it, it comes across as very suspicious because I know a lot of people who say just that and yet lost the ability a long time ago and just regurgitate what they are told by some guy wearing a suit because he is popular. It is a very interesting concept to say the least when both the thinkers and the indoctrinated define it as the same thing, and yet, due to thinking, unthinking have assigned different values to the points that they consider. It is also very difficult to pinpoint whether, or not, there is a message being conveyed or if the person is genuine about the thought. Is it politically, scientifically, or party-based? My party is always right. Follow their reasoning. Can't you think rationally and arrive at the same conclusion? Is it the path of the indoctrinated? These people are smarter than me, and their reasoning makes sense to me. Can't you realize that it makes sense and that they are right? Is it the path of self-proclaimed thinker who proclaims to question everything deeply, but ends up either amalgamating the opinions of others instead of coming up with their own? Is it the logical thinker, perhaps? Their mind is easily biased on certain idea. Is it the real thinker? Would a thinker post such a thing? Would they be here? It is a hard thing to write critical thinking when the definition, while technically the same across the board, has so many nuances and complicated points. I didn't plan on writing this much. Answer. The first mistake is thinking there are real thinkers versus some other, less worthy group of people. Even if it were so, giving the notion credence means putting yourself at the mercy of it. All you have in the end is your own judgment, meant in a friendly way to get the tone across. Story 40. Sea life. Folks don't like to hear it, but eating seafood is eliminate the oceans, and anyone eating it is willfully participating in destroying the planet for future generations in a very direct way. Story 41. Physical food menus at restaurants. Now you just scan a code with your phone camera and the menu pops up on the screen. I dislike it. Story 42. Large-scale traditional book publishers, or what's known as trad pub in the industry. The last decade has seen the Big Six become the Big Four, as two of the largest book publishers in the world have gone under after decades of failure to make a profit. A lot of folks expect that it'll be the Big Three before long, as the writing is already on the wall that another is wavering. In fact, they're all wavering. Why? It's a combination of things. Probably the biggest problem is that all the money is flowing upward. Royalties and advances for authors have shrunk to a pittance. King's first advance, before he was anyone, today would be about $14,000. An established author these days has trouble getting an advance of $2,000 for a successful series. Add to that royalties having shrunk to almost nothing for many authors. We're talking less than a penny a book sold. And many authors that can are abandoning traditional publishing houses, going indie or hybrid with smaller, more modern publishers, where you can earn 10, 20, or even $1 a book sold. Where's all the money? Well, before making his compensation private, the CEO of Macmillan was one of the most highly paid CEOs in America. And of course, the publisher just recently traded out their old, only somewhat expensive company headquarters for a suite of penthouse offices in New York City. Because that sells books? But it's more than just massively overpaying the upper levels of the traditional publisher. The publishers are also archaic, still locked in using technology, printing methods, editing methods, etc., that are now decades out of date with the modern world. For example, one house from one of the Big Four still requires all editing and manuscript work done by snail mail, with pen and red ink, rather than this newfangled internet thing. Did I say one? Oh, I meant most of them, across all the Big Four. This leads to massive overhead and production costs, which publishers have compensated for, rather than by modernizing, by cutting edit quality and time. It's the same with manufacturing and marketing. Traditionally, trad pub operated under the "we'll tell you what will sell" model. An executive in an office did the research and then decided for everyone else what was going to sell. If it wasn't one of those few things, the publisher wouldn't bother with it. As it turns out, executives in cushy offices spending most of their time vacationing on yachts don't have the faintest clue what the common folk want to read. This has led to the Big Four playing catch-up while smaller, independent publishers and authors go right to what the audience wants, constantly selling books that the public wants. Prior to modern publishing technology and tools, such as POD and ebooks, it wasn't feasible for most to have that much market flexibility. But now that they do, the big publishers refuse to adapt. The result is that the big publishers only have one leg left to stand on: the marketing machine. And they spend millions buying their books to the top of the NYT, making sure that the NYT doesn't allow any books from non-approved publishers on the list, etc. But it's the only tool they've got left. And judging by their constant losses over the last 3 decades, it's not working. And one by one they fall, authors leaving for greener pastures. Story 43. Manual transmissions. As we continue to push towards electrification, where shifting gears is obsolete, the manual transmission will fade away. Making up only 2.4% of last year's sales, they are pretty niche among new car sales overall. For 2021, there is still good options if you like sporty cars. Story 44. Butterflies. There were so many more butterflies when I was a kid in the 50s and early 60s. The ordinary white flutterers, yellow flutterers, monarchs, tiger swallowtails. They were all abundant in the field where I did my butterfly hunting. I saw a monarch last summer. I can't remember when my previous monarch sighting was, could have been a decade ago.